before I go through triangular security, we started the show with asking you to close your eyes. I hope and believe by now your eyes will be truly open, well and truly open to your future, to the future of financial services, not only in Australia but in the world, to the future of banking worldwide. Our Elk Vault, then the Elk Robot, working on that data, really, really working it. So at all times, real time, you know what you should be doing, what it looks like, and why. So you can execute and get to a point where you don't have a shortfall for your retirement. You're not paying too much. You're not wasting money, because life costs too much as it is without having to overspend and overpay along the way. Then from there, our Elk Money Supply and Exchange. What a game changer. The cure for credit card debt. Really? Why take on a credit card when all it is a gap in your cash flow? Hey, you've got future income, don't you? You've got pay due to you. You've got invoices due to you. Well, use that as an asset to get access to some money now, some cash now, and then through that future income, clear that money supply. And our system is the exchange that it happens in. The exchange is, there's always savers and there's users. The savers have money to put to work. Users want money to put to work. The exchange is Elk. That's for any level. Mum and dad's through to big business. And if you don't think this is accurate, you think it's a pipe dream. Now, a guy called Greenseals, an Australian dude, out of Bundaberg, look him up, Greenseals, has built one of the biggest banks in the world, Greenseals. His bond portfolio, he issues more bonds and has more bonds in play than the combined big four banks of Australia at any one time. A guy from Bundaberg learnt his stuff in the UK, found, like I have, guys like him, guys like me, we do it. So we were talking about Greenseals. And with Greenseals, one of the biggest bond issuers in the world. And his business model is about supply chain finance. So in that supply chain, his mum and dad had a farm up in Bundaberg, and he saw the pressure they were under by not having money supply when they needed it. So he put a solution in place that was, okay, I've got someone who needs money supply, a user, and I've got a supplier, so his investors that invested in, back then not a bond, but something similar. But why was it the equivalent of a bond? Because a bond is an instrument that is issued by big corporates or governments. So when they need money, that's a way in which that money is accessed by issuing a bond. Now, it's basically a loan. It's an IOU. So an IOU at a grander level. But it has to be someone at the end of that bond that so is the IOU part, the one that's going to repay the money, that's investment grade, an investment grade obliger. So in this instance, Greenseals was smart enough to recognise that there's a lot of businesses in Australia that supply services or product to big businesses such as Woolworths, Coles and the like. And so that was obviously an investment grade obliger. So they went and put a structure in place where they agreed that they would, being Greenseals, provide money to the person needed, the business that needed, and then they would take over that income that was due to them from the investment grade obliger. So the money that was owed to them by those big corporates, supply chain finance. Now, if you think that what I'm talking about is not achievable, well, if someone from Bundaberg can put in place and be one of the biggest bond issuers in the world and have a worldwide business that's a bank like that, then there's no way in the world we're not going to do what we set out to achieve. And what we're talking about here is something similar in the form of triangular security. So one way in which we can really help businesses get access to the money supply they need, and not necessarily borrowings, but if it's money supply or borrowings, this is the same effect. Now, before I touch on triangular security, it's a bit of a build-up, isn't it? Let's look at what I touched on before. What are the banks really doing differently? So none of the big banks do anything different. They're all much of a muchness. I deal with them all the time. I've dealt with them in a variety of different situations. They're painful. And even the new so-called business bank, well, there's nothing different. It's just a different colour. Same shape, same beast, same experience. Then from there, in relation to the other banks, they're not doing anything different. Let me tell you, no one's doing anything different. This is. And Triangular Security is not the only difference. That's just simply a structure. That's using merchant banking experience expertise to put something together that no one else is doing. Not because it doesn't work, because it's the right way of doing things. And it's not something that people have thought about, a bit like green seals. Just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean it's not right. It hasn't been done because someone has had the foresight to think about it enough, to have enough reason, enough why to think about it. So we've got an Elk Vault for a business or person. We've got a robot that's working its arse off, getting the best out of your data. Your personal financial data is now an asset. We've got Elk Money Supply and Exchange, giving you the money supply when you need it, or giving you the returns you need when you need it. We've talked about Elk Invest being able to use your savings and put it to work for you to grow an asset that changes your asset position just by dealing with us, that puts you to have some skin in the game, to follow the trajectory of Elk, to have an upside that is something you can't put a return on investment figure on, because the upside is just through the roof. The opportunity, the return you can get on no investment is infinity. So if you get a return that doesn't cost you anything, it's an infinity return. And we're talking about something that's significant here. But to the Triangular Security. With the Triangular Security, what we've got is, we'll have, say, someone who's a user wanting access to money supply, and to look at their solution and the structure we put in place. Well, every bank wants landed security. They want that property as security. Well, they don't need it. And most people don't want to offer it, because businesses have business assets. They have their debtors, the future income. They have other business assets. So what we look at is, how can we provide money supply to businesses using Triangular Security? So let's say ABC company wants access to money supply. Instead of offering up bricks and mortar, they use their business assets. I mean, a genuine business asset lend. Now what we do is we look at the industry and then go, okay, what industry are they in? What is the profile of this borrower? Where do they sit in that industry? And this is all done through our system, through our software as a service. So you plug your data in and we start processing and provide solutions for you with the back-end data we have. Now, what we do is under a private and confidential basis with no personally identifiable information, obviously after appropriate authorization is provided and we've issued terms where the person says, you know what, that sounds good to me as a potential user, we go to a third-party large industry player, a business in that market or a vertical market that may have a use for that asset in the event of worst case scenario. Because as a business owner, you want to use your business assets. You don't want to put your house as security, but you're willing to back yourself as a business owner, aren't you? We've got business assets, use it. Use it for leverage. Leverage, you can take something small and make it big. So we go, okay, well, let's just say the proposed user has some business assets, and they might be tertiary, they might be a bit difficult to deal with, or they might not be, they just are specific business assets. We go to someone in that industry that's a big industry player, and we go, you know what, we've got these assets worth, say, 500k, and they're valued at this. The exposure we've got, they might be valued at 500,000 for an independent valuer, and the exposure we've got is some 200,000. What we want to do is we want to have an option put in place, and that's a put option, where in the event of worst case scenario and after working it through as an ultimate exit strategy, would you be willing to, under that option, if we execute that, secure those assets at X amount of dollars, enough to clear the debt and any money owing as a clearance source? So that's a win-win-win. How? Well, the business has got access to money supply and borrowings, money supply or borrowings. I said money supply and borrowings. Because money supply is different. Money supply is against future income. Borrowings might be a term loan. But either way, it's against the business assets. And they're going to use their business assets instead of landed security. They've either been able to get money they weren't able to access otherwise, or they've been able to avoid using their property as security, and they can put that to use in other ways. Use their property as security for an investment loan for a funding solution to go and invest for your future, not against your business. Keep the two separate, for goodness sake, seriously. So from there, we get the user getting the money that they want. We've got the supplier, who is the investor, the one who's the saver, being able to put their money to work at a greater return. And they've got a number of different security recourses. So the protection of the credit process and the borrower themselves. And then what we've got is an investment grade obliger. The person we've got, or the third party with the put option with, where we go, okay, in the event of worst case scenario, after management process and the need for clearance has been clearly identified, there's no other option, we'll execute that put option. You then settle on that, you buy those assets, and you give us the money to clear the borrowings, to return the money to our saver, and obviously cover any costs along the way. That's a win-win-win. So this allows good businesses to access money supply. And then our intent is to build relationships. So we'll always work through. And the put option scenario is the worst case scenario, like a mortgage is, in the form of any exit strategy. But parting ways with some business assets, or a business asset, a lot better than parting ways with the roof over your family's head. Now, what it also allows us to do, though, is it means that our triangular security is an underwriter. So the deal's underwritten. And depending on the size and scale of that underwriter, is a level of investment grade obliger. That then affects pricing, of course, and the return to the saver, and the cost of funds to the borrower. And with that, it allows us then to go get insurance. Insurance around that deal to wrap around it. Now, there's a lot of banks out there saying they're doing things differently. What I say is, what a load of shit. How? Show me, because I don't see it. So what I've shown you now is something completely different. And with the banks at the moment saying they do something different, it's a bit like Marilyn Manson dressing up and saying he's going to sing jazz. Yeah, it doesn't happen. You're still Marilyn Manson, mate. So for those, and just on that, made me think, for those high net worth investors, those sophisticated investors out there that are responding to ads on the radio and TV about, you put your money here, we'll give you 4, 5 or 6% return. It's as safe as term deposits, or it's our fixed interest investment. Where's that money actually going? Well, it's going into shares, startups, large illiquid property holdings. And then those same investors are surprised when they can't redeem their money. When at the moment, when markets shift significantly, that assets get frozen, you can't redeem your funds. And it's, wait a second, what do you mean my redemption's frozen? Oh, come on, wake up to yourselves, guys. Seriously, what do you expect? You need to look at what the underlying assets are. And what I see is you're not sharing in the return that you should be for the risk you're taking. So if you want someone to talk straight, doesn't tell you what you want to hear, doesn't tell you bullshit, then Elk's the firm for you. Speak with me, jump on the Elk locomotive. We're not a bank, we're what a bank should be.